Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Bourbon Obsessed New Bourbon Releases News Podcast, your commercial-free and money-free bourbon podcast for Monday, June 30th. I am Ed from bourbonobsessed.com, also known on Instagram as bourbon_obsessed. I publish bi-weekly newsletters featuring the latest bourbon news and releases, and also do this podcast version for your listening pleasure. This week we have quite a few new bourbon releases, although not quite as many in the recent weeks. I'm again joined by my friend and bourbon aficionado, Dean Langdon. Dean, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Ed. Thank you for asking. It's been a busy bourbon week for both of us, I know, because some of the things we've done together. So,
what has been the high point?
Wow, the high point has definitely been going on some barrel picks, a couple of distilleries in West Central Kentucky, helping pick barrels for the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. That's an honor and a lot of fun to boot. So
yeah, no, it was great. We were at MB Roland and we were at Casey Jones, and we picked some fantastic barrels. So when
I think we did,
September rolls around and we see everybody there,
that's right. Come out to.
I think you're going to like them.
Kentucky Bourbon Festival is the only place you'll be able to get these, and you can tell Ed and I how well or poor a job we did. Although I think you're really going to like them. So
yeah, I'm not worried about the poor job part.
We had some other folks who helped us out too, so
which is why they're good.
And you've been to those distilleries. I hadn't, so it was a nice experience. Really good family-run distilleries are just they're so much different from the bigger ones.
Yeah, it's really nice. I mean,
really authentic, really good juice. So
yeah, no, it's a great time.
Mm-hmm.
Great whiskey. All right, ready to dive right in?
Let's dive right in.
All right. So our first is Russell's Reserve 13-year-old bourbon. It returns in 2025 as a limited release, now bottled at a new higher barrel proof of 123.8. Introduced in 2021, this non-chill filtered small batch bourbon is selected by master distiller Eddie Russell and will now include batch-specific proof and production season details on the label. The 2025 release was bottled in spring and will be available this summer on a limited basis at a suggested retail price of $200.
It's hard to beat Russell's Reserve 13-year-old bourbon. I mean, they came up with a 15-year-old, I know, but
which is pretty good.
They're both they're always good. I mean, you know, yeah. I rarely have a wild turkey product I don't like, but I don't know if I've seen one at this proof point before, which should be something
they've
new.
Left behind the 110.
Yeah. You know, I mean, they got a 116 product, but even their single barrels, they usually proof down to like what 110, something like that. Yeah, right.
So the single rick houses, I think some of those have been at barrel proof, and that was sort of their big calling card for their fairly big price tag.
Yeah.
And still my only issue is 200's a little high for a 13 these days.
But it's a wild turkey and it's a high proof. And so I didn't see anything that told me how many barrels this batch actually consists of. I'm curious to know that as to just how big a batch it is. And so
I would have no idea, but I can't recall seeing that. I don't think they generally release that information.
No.
I mean, I think for some of the the more limited releases, they'll say, you know, a blend of blah 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 number of barrels. But for these other ones, I can't recall seeing it.
No.
So I don't know who knows what the availability of this is going to be. They had that release event at the distillery, which I think had dinner. It was it had a fairly high price tag as well. I don't know. Maybe it's my spending too much time in the bourbon world, but I didn't really want to spring for it, so I missed that. And then it turned out, because they made it sound like they weren't going to actually have a release at the distillery other than at that event.
Oh, wow.
Except then they did. It was, Friday, I think was the day after. I don't think it was Saturday. I think it was Friday, where they wound up having a release at the distillery. So I think a lot of people went and got bottles. So I don't know if they'll be having more releases and what the availability is of these. They've been difficult to get, but they haven't been impossible to get.
Right. Yeah, no, I haven't been able to get one, but that said, I haven't gone out and waited in a line or haven't driven around to 18 different stores trying to find one. So, you know, the people that do that, maybe you'll get lucky and find one.
Well, yeah. Well, I think our previous any of the ones that I have, well, one of them I won. That was good. So that was easy.
Yeah, that's great.
In fact, I was working and my phone was starting to go off with all of these congratulations messages. And I was like, what is this? Because I had no idea.
Right,
Obviously,
right.
it was a Saturday, so it was very busy because I'm there by myself. And then that was a nice thing to be greeted with. And then I think the other ones, my wife has probably come across, but
Right.
there was no line standing involved.
It's nice when you have a second set of eyes out there looking for things to pick up, and your wife knows probably as much about bourbon as you and I combined. Don't tell her that, but
Well, she's not going to watch this, so there's no worry there.
we could have more viewers.
Just
Ed.
kidding.
Come on.
She listens to it when she walks. So.
Right.
When she's not on it herself.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I think that'll be good. I mean, it'll be interesting. The good news is I think we have friends who we know are going to buy it. So we're going to have the opportunity
We'll
to try it one way or the other if we
Exactly.
don't get our own bottles.
Right.
But yeah, I agree. It's going to be good. I've not been disappointed by any of these. They've all been great.
I'm looking forward to putting just a drop or two of water in this when I run across it, because at that proof point it'll take that, and who knows what else it'll open up. So.
But we'll try it without it, of course.
Of course. I have to start that way.
Rested for 15 minutes and you're going, Karen. Right.
That's all of us.
Moving on. So next, Dierks Bentley has announced the limited release of Row 94 Broken Branches Bourbon in collaboration with Lofted Custom Spirits and Green River Distilling. Aged 5 years and bottled at 100 proof, this Kentucky straight bourbon undergoes a unique branch aging process using fire-toasted oak staves that were seasoned for 24 months. Only 1,500 bottles are being released to coincide with Bentley's Broken Branches album and tour. The bottles are priced at $99.99 and will be available via lottery registration at the whiskey's website, which is row94whiskey.com. So what do you think of that?
Well, I think that's a good marketing in for Green River and Lofted Spirits. I think it's a little bit on the high end price wise for what it is, but when you've got a celebrity, endorsing and promoting a product, you can use that to increase your price. That's part of the idea, right?
I don't know. I mean, this is definitely at $100 for a 5-year Green River at 100 proof when you can buy the full proof for less than 50, and it's not finished with staves, but that doesn't add another $50 to lower the proof point. I mean, this is high for me, and it's high for the price of the base liquid. And I think it's interesting because his first release, I was actually impressed, which was also from Green River, and I think it may have been a 5-year also. It was at least a 4, if not 5-year. But regardless, it was priced at around $40. And I thought, oh, that's a very reasonable price for a celebrity whiskey. So then now to make this huge jump, I mean, I think part of it is probably the first release that was successvul. I mean, honestly, it's good to be a celebrity. You have built-in purchasing base.
And they're doing
people.
They're doing this via lottery, which tells you something right there. I mean, if they think there's such a demand for it that they're going to run a lottery, that gives you some flexibility on raising that price also, even though for a pure bourbon geek who's looking for the quality of the product, maybe it's not $100 bourbon. Not taking anything away from Green River, they can certainly make $100 product, but that's
just
not all
based
that's
on their
going on
current
here.
pricing.
Right.
It's what we're talking about, not what it's inherently worth. I think Green River's products are great, and they probably could sell for more, but don't get any ideas.
No,
but
one of the reasons they're great is their price point, right? I mean, they're reasonably priced. They're a good product, and so I hear you. This is at the upper end of that. Curious about the fire toasted stave. That's something I haven't heard of before. It's similar to, I guess, a toasted barrel, but instead of putting it into a barrel, they're actually putting the staves in an existing barrel. Will that make a difference? Who knows?
I mean, this is definitely sounding like the immersing of wood in a various form into the barrel. So yes, so I assume these were not kiln toasted or whatever. They must have been toasted over a fire and then put in. And interestingly, that they themselves were seasoned for 24 months. So I mean, that And then toasting, I mean, that could release some very nice flavors from the wood.
Right, it could.
So this could be very good. I mean, and I assume part of the price is it's attached to the album, it's attached to the tour.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, I think, celebrities play in a different field when it comes to these whiskeys. If you and I just started a brand out of nowhere, we wouldn't even.
If we could price it at $20, Ed, we might sell some. But we're not going to get $100. You're right.
Right. Maybe if we sell 6 or 7 bottles.
We have at least 8 or 9 friends. Come on.
But anyway, well, we'll see. I just am surprised by. I don't know. I don't love things come out at price points that seem elevated beyond what
right
I would think they should be in today's market.
And in this market, it's not a market to be raising prices from what we've seen in other products, right? So.
No, and this is new territory for him. I mean, his last one was very reasonably priced. So if this is based on how well that sold, it should take into a price partly that it sold well because of its price point.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll see. I mean, all right, moving on. So Heaven Hill Distillery has announced the second edition of their Grain to Glass Kentucky Straight Rye Whiskey, a limited edition release made entirely in-house from locally grown grain. It features a mash bill of 63% rye, 24% corn, and 13% malted barley, a higher rye content than Heaven Hill's traditional rye whiskey. The Beck's Hybrids 6225 corn varietal used in this edition was grown by Peterson Farms, just like the other grains in the other grain to glasses, on one of 2 sites in Nelson County, Kentucky. The whiskey was barreled at 107 proof, aged for over 6 years at the Cox's Creek Rickhouse site, and bottled non-chill filtered at 105.2 proof. It will be available nationwide in 700 milliliter bottles at a suggested retail price of $99.99.
I thought it was interesting that it's a rye, but the focus is on the corn. And that it's grown there in Nelson County, and it's the lesser grain, if you will, in this whiskey that they're sort of focusing on. It's not clear where the rye is from.
I think it's from these same fields. I had to go back and look at that too, because it struck me that. And then I have to look back at last year's, but it did strike me that it's the corn hybrid that's the one being mentioned. But I'm pretty sure that's how it went last year,
right?
For the 3 grain to glasses, which were released all at the same time. So we didn't really have the question, I guess. But since they're being released one by one this time, we sort of wind up paying more attention to it, right? And it's hard to not notice that it's the corn varietal that's being mentioned. But as far as I know, the ryes are also. I think all the grains are local.
It'll be local. I would hope so. I mean, and Heaven Hill is pretty upfront and pretty authentic about those things. They don't pull punches.
No, I mean, it's the whole point of this in the first place is for it to all be. And I thought these actually qualified as the estate whiskeys, or will if they don't already, because Heaven Hill's part of that.
Part of the Beam Institute Estate Whiskey Project.
Right.
Right.
So anyway, I mean, did you have this one last year?
I did not have this one last year, and I favor ryes over bourbons. So, when you get this sample, we'll do a side by side, Ed, and we can do last year's and this year's and see, if we can tell the difference and if we like one better than the other, and those kinds of bourbon geeky things, right? So
I think it's coming Monday.
I got to soften them up, folks. So.
When you get your next review done, you'll get to try the next whiskey.
Okay, that's fair.
But so out of the set last year, though, the rye was my favorite of all of them. So I'm very much looking forward to trying the rye this year. So
it'll be interesting to see what the mash bill was for the rye last year versus this one. It sounds like it's different if this is the highest rye mash bill they've had, and that's 63 is a pretty decent rye percentage.
I'd have to look. I think it's similar. I mean, this is just because last year it wasn't the same as the regular Heaven Hill rye mash bill either. So it may be the same. We can look at it. I'll definitely look at it in more depth when it comes time to review it.
Right.
But anyway, definitely interested in
right.
Even that.
And it should be out soon, right? If it's not already. So and the grain to glass things are relatively findable. In my experience, so
yeah. I mean, they're limited, but they're sort of limited for the year, I guess. They did seem to be around for I don't know. I mean, it's hard to find all three of them in one place,
Right.
but to find any given one, probably have a pretty good chance.
What's next?
Well, we've got two more from Heaven Hill, actually. So the second Elijah Craig barrel proof release of 2025 has arrived, and I'm a little late on this. It arrived a couple weeks ago, but it's arriving in our
It's just not
podcast
getting
now.
out to stores, I think. So
Elijah Craig barrel proof batch B525 is bottled at 126.2 proof and aged 11 years, 6 months. This small batch bourbon is non-chill filtered and uncut, preserving all the natural esters and taste components from the barrel to the bottle. Known for its extra aged characteristics, this release maintains the traditional qualities loved by consumers and critics alike, according to the brand. The last batch of the year, Batch C, will be arriving in September. The suggested retail price is $74.99, and I'm pretty sure that's still in a 750 milliliter bottle.
I love, the barrel proof Elijah Craig's. They're always a good product. They used to always be 12 years. That's not true anymore, but this one I think is like 11 years and 6 months, so it's pretty darn close. And they're not going to pick one if it's not ready, right? I mean,
no, they're going for the flavor profile.
Exactly. Yeah. So 126.2 proof on this one. Nice proof point. Not hazmat, but a lot of times you get up above 130 and you lose flavor, in my experience, to the heat. So not always, but sometimes. So.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it varies whiskey by whiskey.
Right.
I mean, some of these have gotten up to, well, at least one has gotten up to the hazmat, and then a couple have gotten to the 139.
Mm-hmm. I actually went back and looked at, I mean, this is the 12th year they've released the Elijah Craig barrel proof, and I didn't realize they've been doing it that long. But yeah, I noticed that there were a number of them up in the mid to high 130s. That it's
I didn't realize they were doing it for that long either.
Yeah. Goes back all the way to 2013. So.
But yeah, I'm a big fan. I mean, I have a lot of these. Apparently not all of them because I didn't realize they went back that long. And I finished my last squat bottle one. But now I don't even have any of those older ones left.
Right.
But there's plenty of the recent ones. Yes. No, I'm a big fan. I'm looking forward to trying this as well. I think I've tried not to read reviews because I'm planning on reviewing it. But I think the gist is that people are liking this release quite a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody doesn't ever not like a electric release. But
that's right. But there are some that seem to stand out.
Than others. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in the industry, the as people review them, go, this one is really special, or yeah, this is good, but it's normal Heaven Hill Elijah Craig good as opposed to outstanding.
Right. So, anyways, I'm always looking forward to those.
Yes.
All right, and next is it's sort of partner in crime, the second Larceny barrel proof release of the year, Larceny barrel proof batch. You guessed it, B525 has been bottled at 117.4 proof and aged 6 to 8 years. This uncut, non-chill filtered small batch bourbon is bottled straight from the barrel and made with Heaven Hill's wheated mash bill of 68% corn, 20% wheat, and 12% malted barley. This edition was preceded by the A edition in January and will be followed by the C edition also in September. And its suggested retail price is $64.99.
It's hard to beat this on the price point for what you're getting. These are 6 to 8 year old bourbons. Wonderful proof point. If you like wheateds, I think Larceny is just one of the best wheated bourbons out there, and this extra proof brings out a bunch of different flavors for me. So I'm a big fan of these.
I think wheated bourbons really shine at the higher proof to me. I mean, it brings out all these richer flavors that just aren't there at the lower proof. And I agree, this is it's a great deal price wise, and
it is. I mean, these are
bourbon.
Generally pretty easy to find.
They've both gotten easier. There was a time when Elijah Craig barrel proof, and especially the Larceny, Elijah Craig barrel proof after it won whatever it won, San Francisco Best Bourbon, I think. And then I think Larceny did the same thing.
I think so too. Yeah, I agree, they did, and it's
and so then they're always impossible to find, just like McKenna, which did like the same thing also.
Exactly. And so it's getting easier, though. I mean, I've noticed.
It's definitely easier.
I think McKenna's on the shelf all the time now, and these batches will sell out, but in my experience, this will be around for at least 3 or 4 weeks. And every once in a while, you go to a smaller store, you can find one from a couple years earlier, which is always fun to see if it's one you've got or not.
Yeah. No, it is fun. I mean, you'll find the older ones, and occasionally you'll find much older ones just mixed in with
right, right.
the newer ones.
Yeah, depending on who's stocking the shelves and if they know what they're doing or not. There's, oh, that was from 2018. Great. So
no, it can be very exciting.
although actually Larceny didn't start doing this till 2020. So if you find a 2018 Larceny barrel proof, something's wrong.
No, they did. They were single barrels, but as barrel picks earlier on. I have some of the ones before this actually became a mainstream release.
Right. Yeah.
I actually think I have one that's signed by Denny Potter when he was
Wow.
master distiller.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So but if you find those are very
Grab
rare.
those, right? And again, single barrel versus barrel proof, they're different things, right? So who knows how many barrels go into this batch of Larceny barrel proof? It's not just one barrel, but they're all good barrels. So that's what matters.
Yeah, I think we've been told. I don't remember the exact number, but because they talk about it when you do bourbon,
Mm-hmm.
at Heaven Hill, because Larceny barrel proof and Elijah Craig barrel proof are two of the things that you'll get to choose from.
Right.
But I do not remember offhand.
So let's switch distilleries.
You mean after 3? Seems like a fair thing to do.
Right.
Well, let's just take a moment and talk about what we're sipping on here. So this is the 15 Stars Founders Reserve Rye. It's their latest release, and it's a blend of 14, 13, 9, and 8-year-old straight rye whiskeys. And I do not remember. They were distilled in Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee.
Interesting.
So I don't know, obviously, which is which.
Right. 13 to 14 is old.
Yeah.
Obviously for a rye. And 8 and 9 is actually somewhat old for a rye, but
no, it's definitely a mature rye. I mean, look at the color on that. It's really nice.
And you can sort of strangely smell the age on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
It's got sort of a woody, almost dusty.
Yeah, it's got that little bit of a dusty character to it, which really it's not that common to get that. I mean, I think you get it in some, dusties, and then get it in some wild turkeys that aren't that old for whatever reason, but really not that many ryes do you get it in.
No.
You don't usually get ryes that are all that old.
No, and they're usually, minty or grassy and sort of fresh and they pop. So
I mean, I have a full review of this on the website, so we don't have to go into great detail. But what are your
It's nicely. I like it's nicely spiced. It doesn't have the cinnamon red hot kind of things that you get in some ryes. I don't get a lot of mint, but I'm getting just some wonderful baking spices, some cloves in there. There's some I don't know if it's some tea or some tobacco. I mean, there's some really nice blend of earth and spice. Is what I'm getting out of it. So.
Yeah, it's got the rye flavors mellowed down as they usually are, the citrus and the spice to some degree as they start getting older, with some of the older barrel flavors, and then like we said, a little bit of that almost dusty kind of character. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really good.
It's very good.
Mature rye.
Yeah, it has layers. Like sometimes ryes are a little bit two-dimensional. This one has.
This is definitely multi-dimensional.
Fourth dimensional chest.
Yeah,
right?
You keep getting more and more out of it the more you sip on it.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on, as we said, we're changing distilleries from our 3 Heaven Hill releases. So Little Book Chapter 9, None for Granted, is the latest installment in Freddie No's annual limited edition series. This 2025 release blends 5 Kentucky whiskeys, 3 traditional bourbons aged 7 to 11 years, an 8-year-old rye, and an 8-year-old brown rice bourbon. So corn is still the main grain, just brown rice is the secondary grain. Previously featured in Little Book Chapter 4. One of the 7-year bourbons was finished in toasted barrels, while another was fermented longer than they usually do and distilled to a lower proof to enhance fruit notes. Bottled at 121.8 proof, None for Granted is priced at $159.99 and showcases the founding flavors of American whiskey, brown sweets, vanilla, creamy caramel, and big oak. And that's from its description. It's sort of meant to exemplify those
traditional bourbon flavors. Yes. And I've been able to. I got a bottle of this. I haven't cracked it yet, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I do remember the Little Book 4 with the brown rice in it, and there was a little bit of well, you can't have bourbon with rice in it. Well, of course you can't. You can have it as a secondary grain. And so,
Well, they had done it before. It was one of those little bottle distillers. I forgot what they're called. Distillery. I don't remember what they're called. They
yeah,
did
I know
that
what you're
series
talking
of
about, the
smaller
smaller
bottles.
bottles. Yes.
So they had a
Yeah.
brown rice bourbon then.
Well, and there's a brown rice bourbon out of Louisiana, JT Mellick, I think, that I've had a couple of times, and I found it very tasty. So, and I mean,
Well, they're not bourbon.
technically they're not. They're rice
rice
whiskey.
whiskeys.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And they're very good. There's a bottle. Well, it used to be over there. I've rearranged everything.
We're getting ready for the apocalypse. We're having to rearrange things. So
No, we had to make room for the ice maker.
So Little Book is always, I don't know that I've had a Little Book I didn't like. This is, if I'm not mistaken, this is one of Freddie's sort of pet projects where he's taking these different
Oh yeah,
bourbons from different areas, different ages, and blending them together. And I think he shines at doing that.
No, it's very creative. I mean, when you look at this, you've got something that's fermented longer than usual, something that's finished, something with brown rice.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, it's a hard series to group though. Like to say, I mean, you could say that, like you can't try one and think that any of the others are going to taste anything like it. Their only similarity is their name.
Right.
So that's,
well, I mean, and you can sometimes, I mean, Beam has a flavor profile. I think most distilleries, big distilleries, have a flavor profile. I'm not sure that it's consistent through the Little Book products, though, because they blend so many different things, and including some experimental things.
yeah.
But if there's anything that holds them together, to me, that's what it would be.
Yeah, definitely. I tried it, but it was at a more of like an event type setting, so I couldn't get a great feel for it. But I have a sample that actually just arrived today, so I'll be trying that.
Watch for the review, folks. It'll be showing up in due time. So.
Due time is correct. All right, moving on. Michter's Distillery will release the 2025 editions of its Legacy Series whiskeys, Shenk's Homestead Kentucky Sour Mash Whiskey and Bomberger's Declaration Kentucky Straight Bourbon this July. Shenk's, 91.2 proof for $110, includes some whiskey finished in toasted Vasquez Forest French oak barrels. Bomberger's, 108 proof, $120, is matured entirely in chinkapin oak barrels, with the wood seasoned outdoors for 18 months to 5 years to enhance complexity. These limited vintage-dated whiskeys honor the heritage of the original Shenk's distillery founded in 1753 and its evolution into Bomberger's and eventually Michter's. So that's where the names come from, if anybody was wondering.
And that distillery went under both of those names at one point in the historical past. And if you look on your website, you'll see that, I guess the first one was Shenk's, allegedly distilled whiskey that George Washington used to fortify the troops during the Revolution. So that's a big slice of history. Whether is that true or not, I have no idea.
Are fortified troops like fortified wine?
Well, they're sort of like that. They fight harder. Okay, their accuracy could be a little off, but they do a better job. So.
Well, with those muskets, you didn't have such.
Aim's not great anyway, right?
Right.
Yeah, historically. So,
but these are always great.
They always
series.
are.
And
if I can, when I see them, if I find one, I'm going to grab it. You can't always find it. So,
and they too, their similarities are really only their names. I mean, each year's version is different than the one before. Although I think the Bombergers have been in chinkapin pretty much all the time, but the Shenk's, I think, vary a bit more.
Yeah. Well, and that chinkapin, they season that from anywhere from 18 to 60 months, up to 5 years before they make barrels out of it. So
that's a long time.
Really long time to be seasoning wood before you make a barrel out of it. And so,
so I mean, it should really develop some nice flavors, get rid of most of its tannins, and just have more of those richer barrel flavors and vanilla and things like that. So
these are sort of flagships, or if you will, legacies for this distillery. And Michter's is 2 years now the most admired bourbon in the world. So these are going to be good because that's what they're putting out there as their historical pinnings. So.
I mean, Michter's is another one. They don't put out anything that isn't good.
No, haven't found it yet.
No. So yeah, definitely worth giving those a try.
Mm-hmm.
I think. I mean, I haven't tried either yet, but but I will. Um, so next,
If you get it and you don't like it, you can send it to Ed and I, and we'll help you out with it. Okay?
because I don't actually have a sample of those, so I'm happy to receive some.
Exactly.
Next is Jacob's Pardon has announced the first release in its new Cask Collective series, a 16-year-old American whiskey finished in 50-year-old Oloroso sherry casks from bodegas Williams and Humbert. I guess if it's Spanish, the H would be silent, but Humbert. Or is it an English name, bodega? So it's
I think that's an English name. Right. Yeah.
So we'll go with Williams and Humbert, according to Dean. Blended by master blender F. Paul Picault, this ultra-limited expression features a mash bill of 99% corn and 1% malted barley, is bottled at 48.25% ABV, and is priced at $124.99. Only 48 barrels were produced.
I mean, this is almost a corn whiskey, right? I mean, at the 99.1 mash bill, it's an interesting product.
Well, it's almost a corn whiskey, but it's also that mash bill that gets used in a lot of MGP's light whiskeys, which is,
yeah.
And then wasn't it just a couple, I don't remember if that was when you were on vacation or not, but just within the last few weeks, we had another one of these, that light whiskeys that were under 100 proof. And I'm not sure how they're winding up under 100 proof. If they're getting, I assume they're getting proof down to that because light whiskeys are much higher in proof.
Right.
So it's interesting that these are appearing.
Yeah. And I mean, 16 years old is a long time in the wood. It's had a lot of time to work on there. I wonder, I mean, finishes are always, hard for me to figure out, is it there because you really think it's going to enhance the product, or was it a product that you didn't think was quite up to snuff and you needed to finish it? Who knows, right? I mean, I'm not familiar with Palm Bay International, which is the parent company that puts this out. I did a little digging. They actually they have an amazing number of brands.
Yeah, aren't they an importer?
Yeah, they're an importer, like Drumshambo, the Irish whiskey comes through them. So it's an interesting concept. It's an old, they say old light whiskey-ish type mash bill,
which I can't picture at a lighter proof. I mean, we'll see. I guess I've never had a light whiskey at a lower proof. They usually have those sort of characteristic butterscotchy, sort of richer flavors, which I don't, in my head, don't see doing well, dropping considerably in proof because I feel like they would lose that character, but I've never had it, so I don't know.
Right.
And then mixing it with the Oloroso sherry, I'm having a hard time picturing as well.
Mentally, it's like, well, that's a blend of flavors that I'm not sure how well they're going to blend.
No, because I picture like butterscotch with like berries and stuff, and don't.
Yeah. Butterscotch and grape soda or something, right? With the finish, you just never know with an Oloroso finish what you're gonna get. So,
but the good news is I have a sample that should be coming this week, so we will find out, and we will.
There you go.
We will let you know.
We'll let you know instead of just surmising about it.
But I do think it's interesting how this is the second one in a couple of weeks that has this, what I'm assuming is a light whiskey at under 100 proof, because up to now, you didn't see any of them under 100 proof.
They're all higher proof products.
Yeah.
By definition, almost. Yeah.
All right. Next is Boone County Distilling will release its, or did, I guess.
Yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah. Or 2 days ago when you're listening to this. So.
Right. So if you read the newsletter, you actually had a head start on this because it came out on Friday, but now it's already happened. Boone County Distilling will release its latest limited edition bourbon, Lewis Loder, aged 15 years, on Saturday, June 28 at 10 a.m. This 115.2 proof single barrel bourbon is the second in the distillery's 4-part portrait series, honoring historical figures tied to the original Boone County Distillery. Only 138 bottles will be available, and it's priced at $299 with a limit of 1 per customer, first come, first served.
For their sake, I hope they sold them out yesterday at the distillery. That's not a lot of bottles, but $300 is a...
well, I think the first release sold out in minutes.
But so I suspect this one did too. Yeah. So I didn't have a chance to see who Lewis Loder was. Did you look into that at all?
I did not.
All right. Well, so our listeners should fill us in on
But
who
we
this
probably
person
know
is.
that from taking the Boone County tour.
Right.
Because
right.
they spend a lot of time talking about the historical figures.
They do, yes.
And I've
Yeah.
taken it a number of times, so I probably should know.
I've only taken it once. I have an excuse. Okay.
Well, it sounds like we need to go up there and get
Sounds
our
like we do.
memory
Yeah.
refreshed.
Yes. Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, so we're assuming that this is probably from their original MGP source thing. So it's a 15-year
right.
MGP at 115.2 proof. And so that's why that's going to be a quite desirable bottle, because there's not all that much of that around anymore these days.
Yeah, because they haven't been making their own stuff that long, so it has to be someone else's, and that's where they got their initial stocks. So
Right, so that's what we're assuming.
Right.
All right, and our last one isn't a bourbon, but there's two reasons that I'm doing it. One, I've reviewed. You had them too, right? The two stacks we talked about when when it was around St. Patrick's Day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an Irish whiskey, but we've talked about it before. But this one is really more of a bourbon drinker's Irish whiskey because it has a high corn mash bill and it was aged in used bourbon barrels. So I felt that we should include it because I think a lot of bourbon, would be, I have not tried this one, but I would think this is one that bourbon drinkers it would be a probably bourbon drinker's Irish whiskey.
Yeah.
So Two Stacks has released its first Irish grain whiskey, single grain double barrel, now available nationwide in both a 700 milliliter bottle for $44.99 and the innovative 100 milliliter dram in a can, which is the other thing I love about this brand, for $6.99. This 86 proof whiskey is aged for 3 to 5 years in ex-bourbon barrels, followed by 1 to 3 years in Oloroso sherry casks. It blends 94% maize, which is corn basically, with 6% Irish malted barley, offering a light yet layered flavor profile. The release highlights the potential of single grain whiskey, a style often used in blends, and has already received multiple awards. Maybe rewards.
Rewards. That's what they need to do with their dram in a can. They set up a reward system, right? And just those things would be flying off the shelves.
I love the dram in the can, but I can't remember. They're like they're 100 milliliters, but that's a pretty. Yeah. You're not going to drink a 6-pack of
no.
that's
like
over 3 ounces,
ml,
3.5 ounces of.
Yeah. Even 100 ml is a nice stout.
Yeah, no, that's serving. Like a 3.5 ounce.
Yeah.
Or 3.4 or something.
Right. So I think that's and this isn't the only product they have in the can. So I think that's a great way to try something, if nothing else, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't think you want to buy a whole bottle, hey, $7, you could probably have 2 people try that out of that and then go back and buy the big bottle.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think they do sell some like a mixed set of those. Yeah, it's a very cool. I mean, they're I guess they're meant to take to events and stuff because they are a can. I mean, they're not glass.
Right.
They're alcohol, so you obviously have to be able to bring that in. But they're cute.
It undoubtedly contributes to some of the exciting events at soccer games over in Europe. If you got somebody's bringing a 6-pack of these and they.
Well, in soccer games, probably or football, as they call it.
Football, that's right.
They probably throw these things at each other, and that could cause a lot of damage.
It could hurt if it's full. So drink it first, and then throw the empty can.
Yeah, which then won't fly very well, but
that's okay.
It's safer for everybody.
That's right.
But anyway, so it sounds really good. So it's a high corn mash bill, so it's a grain whiskey by their definitions, and which would also be made in a column still, not a pop still. Mm-hmm. And in the bourbon barrels and should be nice. So
yeah, I mean it's interesting. I mean it could be anywhere from 4 to 8 years old, depending on. I mean I'm sure they blend these together, right? But so you're going to have potentially an 8-year-old product and potentially a 4-year-old product, and everything in between. So that's a pretty big age range for a product like this.
Yeah, both of those things.
Both of them, exactly.
So this we are getting a sample of this too, so we'll get to try it.
Nice.
And I would keep looking over there because I was hoping the dram in a can was sitting there, but it's not. I don't know where it is. I have a dram in the can from the other one.
They have great depictions of them on their website. If you go to Two Stacks, you can see they come in different colors and different flavors. It's if I was an underage drinker, they'd probably be pretty appealing. So,
well, I'm an overage drinker, and they're pretty appealing. So. There you have it.
Speak for yourself. Speak for yourself.
Well, that about does it for this episode. I hope you have enjoyed this edition of the Bourbon Obsessed New Bourbon Releases News Podcast, your commercial-free and therefore money-free bourbon podcast. Be sure to join us for our next Bourbon and Distillery News podcast, which may or may not be next Monday. So we've got July 4th coming up, and my anniversary, my wife's, not mine and Dean's anniversary, is coming up this weekend as well.
Not anything wrong with that.
So there may not be, well, my wife would probably find some fault with it.
Yeah. So we may take a break on Monday, folks. Enjoy the fourth weekend.
Yes.
Drink responsibly.
As always. And also be sure to like and follow us at your preferred podcast provider so that you don't miss an episode. And don't forget to tell all your friends too. You can also head over to bourbonobsessed.com to check out some of our over 300 bourbon reviews and over 50 distillery write-ups. While you are there, you can also sign up to have my newsletters delivered directly to your inbox. Finally, I can be found on Instagram at bourbon_obsessed and on Facebook at Bourbon Obsessed, and would love for you to follow me there as well. Dean, where can they find you?
Folks, find me on Instagram at Dean of Bourbon with underscores. There's some interesting additions this last week from these barrel picks, and I did a distillery tour yesterday, had a tasting today, so there's a lot of bourbon related information out there if you want to go look at it.
Yep, Dean's been a posting machine.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah.
Besides you, you're a better posting machine than I am, but I'll figure it out.
My machine's running at a slower speed. But anyway, all right, folks, have a great week and holiday weekend.
Thanks for listening and watching. Have fun.
Cheers.